welcome to the Innovate 2023 session from Newcomers to Leaders, Fostering Growth in Your Admissions Team. My name is Derek Hartle. I'm one of Capture's Senior Enrollment Advisors, and I'm going to be joined today by two enrollment professionals who are going to be sharing from their wealth of experience on the topic of building and nurturing a successful enrollment team. So I'm so excited today to welcome to the conversation Tom Alexander, Dean of Campus Recruitment and Marketing at Tiffin University in Tiffin, Ohio, and Mark Moffitt, Executive Director of Admissions at Otterbein University in Westerville, Ohio. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being with us today. In just a moment, I'd like to give you each an opportunity to introduce yourselves a bit further, just so you can tell us a bit about your background, how long you've been in the field, and maybe a little bit about what's kept you in the field. I think we all know the pressure and stress of our positions isn't decreasing anytime soon. So what energizes and motivates you to serve your campus community? So Tom, I'm going to go ahead and let you lead us off with a quick introduction from you.
Yeah, and thanks, Derek and Capture, for inviting me to participate, and thanks to all the attendees for carving out some time to listen to the session today. Like Derek said, Tom Alexander, Dean of Campus Recruitment and Marketing at Tiffin University. I entered into higher education back in 2011, right after undergrad. This was never my plan, I think, is the common theme in admissions professionals. I started off at Urbana University and then ended up back at my alma mater, Heidelberg University, for a period of time, and then spent some time at Ohio State in enrollment services. Then went back to Heidelberg University to take a director position before taking some time and working on the partner side. I spent some time at a digital marketing agency that specialized in higher education work, as well as I spent some time as a partnership manager at Niche, which I'm sure most people are familiar with on the call, before I woke up one day and said, man, something must be mentally wrong with me. I really miss working on campus and interacting with students. And that's what led me to Tiffin University in the role that I'm in now. But excited to be a part of the conversation today, and hopefully folks will find some value in it.
Awesome. Thanks, Tom. Mark?
Yeah, thanks, Derek. Thanks, Capture. Mark Moffitt, proudly serve as the Executive Director at Otterbein University in Westerville, Ohio. And I have actually been in higher ed for almost 28 years now. I've gotten my start at the 2-year level at another school in Ohio in their admission office. And then I've been at Otterbein since 1997 and have held a myriad of different roles within enrollment management. And then I've held my current role since 2016. And, honestly, I've really had a great opportunity here at Otterbein. I've had a lot of support to build my career, to build my knowledge and my skill set. I have a great team that I get to work with every day. But really, it's the students that keep me energized and keep me coming back day in and day out, and just seeing how our campus has evolved over the last couple of decades.
Perfect. And thank you both again for your time today. But our discussion is really going to center around the enrollment team, kind of in particular, the hiring, onboarding, development of those team members. And during our talk, hopefully we'll be able to provide some tips, strategies, best practices for finding and developing new talent. And so, obviously, in order to build an admissions or financial aid team, we have to get individuals in the door. So when you think about the key qualities and skills that you look for when you're hiring admissions professionals, what are those characteristics that will kind of move that individual into the next stage of a potential hire?
I can jump in here. One of the things that I've really noticed over the last several years is less and less interest of coming into the world of higher education, especially at that entry-level role. So what we've really started to look at when we're evaluating new talent, new team members, is really some of those soft skills and the skill sets that these new possible team members can bring to our campus, to the role, to the opportunity to work with students and families to meet our mission goals. We're really looking for, those students that, or those team members that, have great communication skills, can be critical thinkers. we do a lot of evaluation, analyzing, and we need our team to be able to form answers, evaluate problems and find solutions. But also too, all of us are using some type of CRM or some type of new technology year in and year out. So we've really started to look and gain an understanding of what new team members can bring to us and to Otterbein to help us move forward.
Yeah, I'll just piggyback off of the soft skills piece. I share with my team all the time when we're looking to bring someone on board, it starts and ends with people. And that's something that's really hard to quantify. But I think something we've really tried to prioritize recently in our hiring process, and I know sometimes you're hamstrung by HR policies, is really tightening who's involved in that hiring process. Not to say that we don't want to be collaborative and work across campus, but nobody knows our audiences better than us. That parent, those students, and the type of individual it takes to really connect with them. So maybe less faculty involved in the search process. And, we really focus on, can that person be genuine and engage in a conversation with us, keep us interested, keep us engaged, and do that in an organic way that's not forced, because that's what this job asks us to do every single day. When we're out on the road at a college fair, you have to be able to relate and connect to people and meet them where they are in that moment. And that shouldn't be something that's unnatural to you. And that's very hard to teach. So really focusing on those qualities in the person. And then the other piece is, do we see a pathway to teach them? Because it is our role when you hire someone onto your team to grow and develop them and equip them. So when Mark talks about CRM, do we think they're going to have the aptitude to learn CRM? Because we can teach them that. What we can't teach them are those soft skills and the other pieces. But that's been a huge focus for us as well.
One of the things that it kind of shows how long I've been in the profession, but 10, 15 years ago, I feel like we would have 80, 90, 100 applicants for an admissions counselor position. Now, or right towards the end of when I left a campus, it was, we were lucky if we got a dozen. And of those 12, we were struggling sometimes to fill an interview pool. Have you come up with any unique ways that have helped you build that pool of candidates that you could potentially share with the group?
I think we're seeing similar trends. Our candidate pools are nowhere near as large as what they used to be. And I think what's even more interesting is where those candidates come from. I don't know, Mark, what your experience has been, but we see a lot of transitioning teachers looking to potentially be admissions counselors. And my conversations there have not necessarily been productive in terms of transitioning to success in the role. But I think with us, it really starts with transparency once a candidate comes in, and be much more intentional about trying to understand the scale and scope of the work that they would be opting into. So I don't have a great solution to grow that candidate pool, but trying to quantify those candidates and move through to a point where if we're going to bring 3 people to campus, we think that they can do the job and that they can do it well, is where we've really tried to focus a lot of our efforts. And then, obviously always thinking of creative things from where do we post and how do we post, social media wise and things like that. But we are much more focused on quantifying the candidate pool that we do get versus trying to grow it to a larger number, because that takes time too. And we work in enrollment. So time is our most valuable resource most weeks. I don't have time to review 80 resumes, but if we can quantify the ones we do have, that's where we've had more success.
Yeah, I would just double what both you and Derek said. But at Otterbein, I'll add one other thing. I mean, we have a great host and tour program for our undergrad students. And, we try to grow them through those 4 years, just as much as we try to grow our professional staff. And, we've had some really good luck, through the years with young alumni coming into our roles and having a good understanding of really our story and how to tell that story. What we find with younger professionals that may be alums is really trying to, distance themselves from being a student to now being a professional. So that's another way that we try to help build our pool. And then, of course, Tom and I and others were always trying to bounce, thoughts off each other in terms of, do you have any potential candidates that might be interested in transitioning or moving on to another institution. But much like Tom said, we see a lot of, applicants that are changing careers. So again, we're going back to those different skill sets, and can we train those candidates to be great and excellent communicators and do a great job within the team.
Excellent. One of the things that I think we all recognize is if there's one certainty every year that we do this is going to be different. And so change and adaptability and kind of that creative or innovative mindset seems to be important to the role of an admissions counselor or a primary recruiter on a campus. Do you have any examples of individuals who, maybe didn't match the typical admissions counselor resume coming in, but managed to turn that into a career, or at least a lengthy stay at your institution because of that ability to adapt, or some of those different soft skills that you've both spoke of earlier?
Yeah, I would say there's been multiple examples over my career. There was a time when I was working at my alma mater that we had a woman who worked in the mailroom, and had started working on campus when she was 18 and went back to school as an adult student, got her bachelor's degree, but had literally seen everything come and go through that campus and expressed some interest in being an admissions person. And I think all of us kind of paused and said, I don't know if that's a really good fit. And, ultimately decided to give her the opportunity, and she ended up being the best worker that we had because she knew the inner workings of the institution. So even though she might not know how to answer a question in the moment, her customer service skills to track down a solution for a student, she knew exactly who to go to, could get that resolved for them quickly. So that's one example. I also have another person on a team right now whose background was planning educational camps at a religious institution. Not necessarily one-to-one crossover there between consultating on, financial aid and things like that, but in that planning role had a lot of adaptability. And I think that's served her well as she transitioned into her role. But I think, Mark, maybe you share a similar challenge. More often than not, what we get are recent graduates that are applying for these roles. And one of the things that has served me really well, and sometimes people laugh at this, but when I look at resumes, if I have someone on a resume who has ever worked as a server in a restaurant or a bar and grill, like right away that stands out to me, because we struggle with individuals who, hey, I need to know exactly what my day is going to look like. And if it veers off of that, I'm going to have a hard time operating. And that's not how it works in undergrad. Enrollment students show up early, they show up late, faculty send random emails. And those folks who have worked in a server type setting, it's chaos if you've ever done it, and they can adapt really well to that. So folks who can thrive in chaos, at least in my sense, tend to transition really well into this type of role.
I love that, Tom. That's awesome. Mark, any thoughts on your end?
Yeah, just real quick. I mean, we currently have 3 team members that came to us from other institutions, but outside of the world of enrollment management. And what we have found, they had careers from 15 plus years to 3 to 5 plus years at their previous institution. And what we found is, much like Tom said, is that they bring a unique view, sort of 100% view of across campus, and that can not only support them in their growth in their new role, but really help our present team members that may have a more focused career just in enrollment management to get a better understanding of really the inner workings across campus.
Perfect. All right, so we get people hired, and then we have to onboard them, right? So that's a whole new conversation. What onboarding programs or initiatives have you found most effective in helping those new admissions team members integrate into not just the admissions office, but the institution's culture, so that they can kind of best understand their roles in admissions and how those kind of filter throughout campus?
I mean, we sort of work in a profession that's sort of cyclical, like in the fall, we're getting people ready to, start the recruitment, whether it's outside travel with, high school visits, college fairs, going into towns, meeting students and families. And then we, sort of roll into that application read to financial aid season, to yield season, to melt season and all that. So, we've really put together sort of a year-long onboarding process. And, I think Tom or Derek said this earlier, it's easy for us to, train and give the right documents and materials for them to do well in the job. But for us, I think it takes really a full cycle for our new team member to really understand how they want to share their story of the institution. So, we've put together, a large handbook for our onboarding of new team members. Every team member has, a mentor or a supervisor that they work with on a daily. But we immediately get them involved across campus, where that's, talking with different academic departments, getting an understanding of really what students have the opportunities to participate in while they're here during the 4 years. We think it's important to, get a good understanding of how athletics plays a role in the recruitment of our students, how academics plays a role in recruitment. And then we spend a lot of time with them on the technical side too, in terms of understanding our CRM, understanding the world of financial aid and everything that comes along with that. But besides that, there's some different things across campus on the outside of our world that HR helps support for new hires. That can be a year-long process as well. So it's a pretty, there's a lot of checkpoints. I guess I'll say that. We have a lot of checkpoints through that first year.
Yeah, I would echo everything Mark said and just point to two other things that I've seen success with recently. First, just to shout out our HR team. One of the things they do with all of our new hires across campus that I think is really cool and kind of fun is they have an amazing race. And they kind of do cohorts, split them into different teams. So maybe you're with someone from maintenance and a faculty member, and they kind of have to go on this scavenger hunt around campus and meet different offices. It's a little cheeky, but it's cool to see it in action. The other thing that I've really tried to prioritize, especially as I've progressed in my career and assumed leadership roles and tried to reflect and say, what would I want to know at that phase in my career, is I try to carve out time with our new hires to really educate them as best I can on the business function of what we're trying to do. I want them to understand if they get pulled into a meeting randomly that this is what NTR means. And this is the state of the market in the state of Ohio where we operate, right? What we're up against from a population decline standpoint, and that we're an oversaturated market with private universities, like really helping them understand, just like you would in a sales capacity, the space that they're operating in. And I've really been happy with kind of how their eyes open up and they say, okay, now this all makes sense. Like, I know we want to recruit students, but why does all of this matter at the end of the day? It's not just about having them here. It's the role that they play in driving the machine that puts us in a position to ultimately better service those students and fulfill our mission. That's what it all has to tie back to. But I know that was something that I didn't get a little bit later in my career. So I try to prioritize that on the front end, really those first 2 weeks, sitting down with a new hire and having a conversation, say, tell me what you know about higher ed in Ohio, and really digging in.
Do either of you and your teams and institutions, I should say, you kind of mentioned the Amazing Race example, but any sort of like mentorship programs that you've tried to like line up a couple staff members together just to make sure that as they go through this, they've always got maybe somebody who's lateral with them as opposed to always having to come to the person above them? Any sort of those programs that have proved successful?
Through the years, we've had some different successes with those, whether they're formal or more informal. But currently, we do encourage our team members, our veteran team members, to take our new staff under their wing, whether they're, their supervisor or not, just to be there to sort of give them the respect that they need to do the job that they want to do, but be there to support their growth, and help them across campus. Something that we noticed, during the pandemic, and a lot of our team went home for several months, and the campus was home for several months. It's been slow going back to everyone knows each other across campus. So that's something that we feel is important with our team, is that we need to make sure that we're out there introducing our new team members across campus, so that they can utilize their voice to support the growth of the students and families that we're working with.
Have either of you noticed, I mean, obviously, as we're recruiting a new generation of student, we're also hiring a new generation of admission staff members. Have you noticed through your onboarding that there are kind of consistent kind of areas of questions that pop up from the folks that you've hired recently, whether it be in, how to use the CRM, or how do I plan travel, or how do I use the phone in my office? Like, I mean, just different things like that. Is there anything you've noticed, like trends that you've had to adjust your onboarding because of a difference in kind of generation?
Yeah, at least, and I'll be interested to see if Mark has the same sentiment. My younger hires especially. And I think this goes counterintuitive to like a lot of the mainstream media perception of young people. It's not that they are not motivated. They want to do well. They want to work hard. They struggle if they don't have a clear path to do those things, work well and work hard. And I think what is a challenge is trying to get people to embrace that what we do at its core is an art and a science, and you have to be able to be fluid in those things. So sometimes we get really tied up on this is what the handbook says, or this is a black and white policy, and we go, well, yes, but you have to be able to in that moment recognize this unique situation. That's where I see that there's a bit of a disconnect, but then that's also where having strong leadership in place to let them know, and this is a message I try to emphasize to my team, is we have to root ourselves in a common mission, which is everything that we do should tie back to, are we doing what's best for students? And if you can come to me in a moment and say, hey, here's the situation, here's how it's played out, and here's how I thought the decision that I made was ultimately what was going to be best for the students. I might not tell you that that was the right decision to make, but I'm going to respect the fact that you went through that process to get there. And just getting them to embrace that message sometimes is a little bit of a hurdle to get over, but you have to ultimately walk that walk and back that up on the other side of it.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree, Tom, and this sort of goes back to when we're hiring, we're also looking for self-starters, because where we do a lot of teamwork, there is a lot of independent work as well. So, but we do see sometimes, with our younger professionals, that they do want that clear-cut direction. We look at our admission counselors as territory managers, really sort of the president of their area. They have that opportunity to build how they're going to manage their territory. But sometimes during that onboarding stretch, there's a lot of conversation and going in there and letting them know that we do trust your decision process, and we give them the skills and the proper direction to make those decisions. But one of the sort of a funny side note, I mean, one of the things that we see sometimes with our newer professionals, especially those who may come from outside of higher education, we've all done it. You have a big visit day, and you're here at 6:30 in the morning putting up signs, and you're here after the visit day cleaning up, and they just don't understand that. That's not part. Why isn't maintenance doing that, or why isn't food service doing that? So those are always fun conversations to have with our newer staff professionals.
That's funny you should say that, Mark. I just had an example recently. Visit day, we get done and I start grabbing 8-foot tables, and one of my staff looks at me, why are you doing that? Someone's got to clean them up, right? Like, it's just the shift in mindset. But I think part of it is when you come up through the industry, that's how we've always operated, right? We're all hands on deck on those days, and They're going to be a little bit uncomfortable, but that's how we're going to get to the win at the finish line, is being uncomfortable on those days. But yeah, it's a big shift in mindset.
Yeah, that's awesome. I remember when I was on campus, I would make sure in that onboarding to make it clear that, hey, this is these are the things we're trying to accomplish here. But don't get, just because somebody that you talk to down the hall does it a certain way doesn't mean that you have to do it in that same way, because that creativity and sometimes that new fresh set of eyes and the ability to utilize technology in a different way. I think we all recognize that we can get tunnel vision when we've been at an institution or we've been somewhere doing a job for long enough, and having that fresh set of eyes can be really helpful. So I know I always just made sure to stoke that creativity kind of part of everybody, and figure out if we could do things different and better. So professional development, I mean, I think that's that's the thing that we all recognize isn't probably invested in enough at colleges, but we sure wish that it could be more. How have you, or how does your institution invest in leadership development within your admissions team? How have you done it? How have you provided opportunities for individuals on your team to develop their professional attributes?
So I think oh, go ahead, Mark.
You're up. Go, Doug.
All right. I think it's important in that question, Derek, to distinguish two things. Professional development is different than leadership development, and not everyone has the capacity or the desire for that part, for the leadership piece. But I haven't met many individuals who say, I don't want to grow as a professional and do better. So I think the leadership development piece is a little bit more tactical and nuanced. But one of the things that we've done on the professional development side of things, and this helps with onboarding and retention, is we have a growth and development plan that we developed, took all the way up to the president, and HR got signed off on this. And basically, it makes it really transparent to folks when they come on board. Hey, you've just been hired in as an admissions counselor, and that comes along with these responsibilities. After a year of success, and here's how we define success related to those responsibilities, there's no reason that you shouldn't be moved to a senior admissions counselor role, and that comes with these responsibilities. And here's how we measure success there. And 1 to 3 years later, you should be transitioning into this level on our team. And it's all spelled out there in black and white. Not to say, again, we work with humans, that there's not nuance, but to be able to put that document in someone's hand. And I think it really helps too, as they look around the room and say, okay, that person's an assistant director. This all kind of makes sense to me now because it's here laid out. And to have that institutional buy-in that, yes, we are going to advance people. We are going to increase their compensation. And we're going to do that based off of these standards, I think has really helped the team kind of understand that professional development piece. And then it's also understanding who they are as an individual and what their long-term goals are, right? I have an individual on my team right now, one of my best when it comes to working with families and students. Admissions is not his long game. He wants to end up on the student affairs side of things, residence life. Awesome. Let's get you on some committees. Let's get you talking to people now so that you can understand that when that opportunity comes up. I'm not of the belief that we're ever going to stop experiencing high turnover in higher education. But my hope is that the turnover is happening for the right reasons. And if I'm doing my job as a leader, that person is either moving on to something bigger and better on my team or bigger and better somewhere else in higher education, if that's where they want to be. And if I can play a small role in that, that's how I'm going to measure my wins as a leader of a group of young professionals.
Tom, I want to put a pin in that because I want to come back to that notion of individualized development opportunities. But before I do that, and we segue into that, Mark, I would love to hear if you have additional thoughts on the prior conversation.
What I may just add is, over the last, several years, and we have become very creative in terms of professional development and leadership development. With tightening of budgets, we're not always able to send every staff member to an outside conference or an outside experience. And one of the newest things that we have on campus is a university administrative development program. And this really allows, campus community who may be interested in leadership in higher education to, apply and become a part of this year-long program. And it's actually, championed by the president here at Otterbein University. But through that year, there's outside assignments, there's books that are chosen around the world of higher education and the different facets that we can all have our careers in within higher education. But also we bring everyone from across campus to make sure that our young professionals, mid-level managers have a good understanding of really how the entire university operates and how we're all working towards that similar goal. So, this is something that a lot of, fellow colleagues are really interested in. And then at Otterbein too, our HR department, has done, monthly sort of, lunch and learns where, they'll bring in different academic areas or different administrative areas and then open it up for something like we're doing right now in terms of a Q&A, just to learn and gain an understanding of really what the different facets of the university, how they operate and how their inner workings help support the goals.
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah, and you kind of both touched on that. This isn't a one size fits all approach, right? Different people are looking for different things in their own development. Going back, Tom, what you were kind of talking about with you mentioned towards the end of your last response was about one individual who had a certain pathway in mind. Have you discovered, or are there any ways you've been able to individualize leadership or professional development for someone, even maybe if they weren't necessarily looking within the field, but just wanted to develop those skills, that you were able to do something different or unique for that person and advance them along?
Yeah, and I would say that even kind of ties back to the hiring process to some extent, excuse me. So again, it starts with people and knowing your people. It starts with trying to have open and transparent conversations with them. And then you have to walk the walk on the other side of that, right? You can't be saying that you're supportive of professional development, and then when they come to you with those opportunities, discouraging them. But I think it's important to know them as individuals, and that's part of the evaluation process and how you build out those expectations. One of the other things that I think has been really helpful for us in getting to that place where folks feel a little bit more comfortable is trying to not build our strategy around the positions and talent that we have right now, but build the strategy and then plug in the pieces to the strategy, if that makes sense. It's not, hey, we have a position open, we have to hire for that position. It's, we're driving towards this goal over the next 12 months, 36 months, 5 years. What are we going to need to get there? And then trying to find the pieces to plug into that and put our talent in the best position on the bus for, first and foremost, them to be successful. And that's a component of our overall team success. And when you can start from there as a team or as an institution, it makes it that much easier then to grow and develop that talent, because they're going to see the returns on their efforts and their success much quicker than, hey, we're going to plug you into this role because that's the role that was vacated by someone else. But having those conversations early and then continuing to revisit them, know what your team member has as priorities, both in the short term and the long term. And then again, walk the walk and be supportive of them as they pursue those goals.
Mark, any examples of individualized pathways or any examples of individuals who you've seen kind of maybe even pave their own trail and advance on in this field through specific development opportunities?
Absolutely. So, I'll use sort of as an example, College Credit Plus. So in the state of Ohio, a lot of our high school students are taking college credit while they're in high school, working towards their high school diploma. And so, we had a staff member that had a strong interest in learning sort of the inner workings of the College Credit Plus system. And not only that, but understanding, so she could help families in gaining how the credits may transfer from a Tiffin University to an Otterbein University. And she took that and ran with it and brought in others across campus from our student success and career development, worked with faculty to support, students and get a better understanding when they're coming in with the credit that they have. And she actually translated that role from leaving Otterbein and joining Columbus City Schools as sort of their CCP director. And, and now she's really just wearing one hat and being able to take that skill set and move herself forward in the profession. So that's sort of exciting. And we've had others do that with, sort of their secondary, programs that they work with within our office as well. So pretty much all of our team have either, one or two or even three different programs that they work with outside their traditional territory management.
Awesome. Maybe the last topic I would love to maybe discuss is the continued idea of how rapidly our field is changing due to new strategies, new needs, all the things that we heard Dr. Graw talk about yesterday, the upcoming challenges we're going to be facing with continued demographic changes, all those things. Do you find that your teams are able to remain agile and kind of acceptable to the fact that things are going to be different pretty much every year and everything's going to change? And if so, how do you cultivate that culture of rapid change within your department?
Yeah, so the difference at Otterbein within my team is I see a lot of turnover in our younger staff, but my leadership team has been here, at minimum 5+ years, and I have some of our team leaders that have been here almost 15 years. So they are there to help support those younger staff professionals on the changes and how to adapt to those. But what we've done at Otterbein is, marketing and communications is a part of our division. So, in that sense, we have an excellent relationship with our friends in marketing and communications, where we're meeting, 2 to 3 times a week to work on brand messaging, strategic initiatives, whether it's print materials or electronic communications. And the tough thing for me sometimes is remembering to keep our team informed of all those changes or all the new tactics or marketing messages that are going out to students through the CRM, so everyone's well informed. So sometimes I have to step back myself and realize that I can't live in a tunnel or a silo, and that I have to be making sure that I'm sharing down through the team everything that we're doing at the upper level, because at the end of the day, they're the ones that are executing it.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Mark. The communication piece is a challenge there. We get so tied up in the operational and how are we going to make this function and how are we going to measure success that, it's easy to lose sight of, oh, by the way, other people need to know this and be able to act on it. And I'll give you an easy leadership fail example of this. We last year at Tiffin started offering direct admission, and we did that kind of late in the recruitment cycle. But I'm talking to our partner on that, getting things set up from a system standpoint, working with operations, working with marketing. And I walked into one of our weekly team meetings and said, hey, good news, we're going live with direct admission next week. And you could just kind of see the blank stares on faces, like, what is he talking about? All right, my bad. We need to take a step back and level set on the, the who, what, where, and why behind this, because you all are going to start to get questions once we flip this switch on. So it is a challenge to kind of remember that part. But I think if you do that and remember it, just always helping folks understand the why behind the decisions that are being made, whether that is, hey, we're launching a new initiative, or we've got a new marketing tactic, or we're making this decision from a staffing and personnel standpoint. Just that transparency I have found to be so valuable. And there's always things that you can't share, but when you can, keeping folks informed. Nobody likes to be in the dark as a member of a team. So I think that transparency helps with the adaptability and innovation side of things.
I always found that keeping people interested in their work and admissions often required keeping them interested in the entire institution. Yep. and everybody in the entire community, and becoming and feeling like a part of that community that they were impacting. Have either of you found any practices that have been effective in kind of like breaking down the silos that tend to exist on college campuses and weaving your team into some other departments? Have you found any practices that have helped with that?
Yeah, I'm gonna sound like a broken record here, but the transparency piece is really a big part of our campus culture right now. And I apologize for the attendees on the call, because you're all going to roll your eyes when I say we have a meeting every week, but we do. But the nice thing about that meeting is it's enrollment, retention, and persistence are all represented in that room, as well as the deans of all of our schools. And it's led by our provost, who sits, right hand to the president. So the message is very clear that we are in here because this is all of our challenge and opportunity around the table, and how do we work to solve this. And then when we need to pull in other pieces to have the full picture, folks are brought in to that conversation. It's a great opportunity for them to get face time with senior leadership, with deans of the different schools. But that's one of those pieces that if it's not echoed by your senior leadership, you're fighting an uphill battle. And I would encourage you, if you're kind of in the middle role like I am, to manage up to your president or manage up to your provost and say, hey, listen, I can try to foster collaboration across campus all I want, but if that's not coming down from the top, and if you're not in that room supporting that, it's probably swimming upstream at this point. But we have had a lot of success, especially over the last month, in getting the right people around the table so that everyone is on the same page and can be informed when they go back to their teams to share out information that's relevant, whether it's enrollment numbers or whether it's, hey, there's some conversation that we might be adding a program or shifting a program. And again, that transparency has proven valuable for us.
I would totally agree, Tom. I mean, at Otterbein, we have what are called coordinator liaisons, and these are actually faculty members that apply and are admitted to these roles. And what it allows us to do is keep that open line of communication across campus with faculty members. And so I meet with them on a monthly basis, along with our financial aid director and our executive director of marketing communications, because we want them to fully understand what and why we do what we do. But we also have been able to open up and understand from their standpoint why they think this may work or this may work. So it's allowed us to create new initiatives. And when they feel that they're being heard and we're being heard, they're more interested in supporting efforts, whether it's reaching out to students, meeting with students on individual visits on campus, larger visit days. So it's been really good. It's sometimes frustrating for both sides, but as long as we can come out, and I think Tom said this earlier, and realize that what we're doing or the change that we're making is to support the students. And if we feel that is the case, then it makes it much easier to make a change.